ahead. Another place in the liturgy, the priest says, he's incensing the gifts, and he says, Voz nesesia na nebesia Božej, prosej zemní sláva tvoja. You are exalted in the heavens, or you are ascended in the heavens, and your glory is over all the earth. Somebody decided that this is symbolical of the ascension, and so we're stuck with that. But the prayers don't say that. The prayers don't talk about these things. There's this Patriarch of Constantinople, Germanus, and he wasn't the innovator of this kind of thing, but he wrote this commentary on the Divine Liturgy that is the granddaddy of all this symbolical interpretation of things. Here you have the people coming into church, and here's an example of it in this. I think I have it here. Let me find it. I don't know. I can't find things in my book when I'm looking for them. Here you have, there's the church, and there's the church going into the church, so to speak. The people, the bishop with the gospel book, followed by a priest or a reader holding the cross, and then the community. They're going to church. This is what we call the little entrance. Today, the priest goes out to be where he used to be when they came into the church. We should call it the little exit. How would that be in Russian? Vichod, mali vichod. Because it's stupid. The priest is only going out there to be where he used to be when the whole gathering came into the church, and that's where the liturgy would begin. Even Father Shmeiman's teacher, Archimandrit Kiprian Kern, he says, this is where the liturgy begins, at the so-called little entrance. That's where the bishop becomes active in the liturgy, at the little entrance. And so, the real explanation of that part of the liturgy is, that's where it used to begin. People came into the church, and the priest goes to be at the lead of the people. But now it's a big explanation. This is the beginning of the public ministry of Jesus. And you don't see any of that in the prayers. In the prayer itself, in the liturgy of St. John Chrysostom, the priest asks that the angels join him and the people in coming into the church and celebrating the liturgy. And maybe this is behind some of the symbolic interpretations, but the prayers don't call any of our attention to this symbolic meaning. It's all made up and added on. There's a prayer that's in the oldest manuscript of the Divine Liturgy, where the priest stands at that place at the head of the people and says to God, receive your church which approaches you. Bring about all that is best for us. Lead us to perfection. Make us all worthy of your kingdom. And Robert Taft says this is an Italo-Greek prayer. I wonder. But nonetheless, no symbolism. It just describes the action of the church coming into God's presence, entering into his presence. And yet we're burdened by all these fantastical interpretations that we can blame on Germanus of Constantinople and then everybody who came after him. But the sad thing about all of this is, and this is what has to be pointed out in efforts to renew, obviously, even the people who were presiding over the divine services did not have a good grasp on the real liturgical action that was taking place. That we come into his presence, at his invitation, to hear God's word, and to make our common prayers. For some reason, they had to see some other unseen symbolic activity going on to entertain their minds. As St. Nicholas Cabasilla says in his 14th century commentary on the Divine Liturgy, well, there's a practical reason to the great entrance. We have to get the bread and wine to the altar table. So, even he in the 14th century, after, many centuries of this symbolical stuff, and you can read it in his book too, all this, a pointless symbolism, he still realizes that there's some actual normal reason for the great entrance. But the tradition of the church tells us what was going on. Remember the bishop's liturgy. The bishop comes and stands in the doorway, and he waits for the priests and the deacons to bring him the bread and wine. There you're seeing a glimpse of the beginning of the Eucharist.